This is KGW News at 11.
Good evening. We begin tonight in Washington, D.C. with all eyes on Walter Reed Hospital, where President Trump is being closely monitored tonight after he tested positive for COVID-19. This is a live look from outside the hospital where some supporters have gathered. First Lady Melania Trump has also tested positive. The president's doctor said in an update late tonight, the president is doing very well. He is not requiring any supplemental oxygen, but they are giving him remdesivir therapy. The doctor said he's completed his first dose of that and is resting comfortably. The president tweeted at 8:30 tonight, quote, "Going well, I think. Thank you to all. Love." Alice Barr is in Washington following the developments.
A snapshot in history, a masked President Trump trying to project business as usual in the midst of the most serious health threat to an American commander-in-chief in decades. Hours after the president announced he and the First Lady tested positive for COVID-19, he boarded Marine One for the short flight to Walter Reed, the nation's premier military hospital, for monitoring. The White House says it's a precaution. The president leaving behind this message.
I think I'm doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out.
The White House physician said President Trump was fatigued but in good spirits and was given an antibody cocktail, an experimental drug meant to boost his body's immune response. The doctor says the First Lady has only a mild cough and headache. At 74 and overweight, the president is considered at higher risk for serious complications. Democratic rival Joe Biden tested negative today and made the decision to drop all negative campaign ads, sending his prayers to the president and First Lady.
This is not a matter of politics. It's a bracing reminder to all of us that we have to take this virus seriously.
The war for the White House now in limbo as the President of the United States joins the ranks of more than 7 million fellow Americans who've been forced to fight coronavirus. Right now, it's unclear how and when President Trump was infected, but at least 6 people who attended the announcement of his Supreme Court nominee last Saturday have now tested positive. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Our Verify team has been busy today looking into what could happen next with the election. Not just the presidential race, but with any other race that might be affected, as we learn of more positive cases. Here's Jason Puckett.
First question, if the president is sick, can the election be delayed? Yes, but Congress would have to make that decision, and they don't have much time. Article 2 of the Constitution says Congress determines the time of the vote. The law currently sets Election Day as the first Tuesday following the first Monday of November. So Congress would have to pass a new law to change that, requiring approval by both the House and Senate. However, the 20th Amendment says that the new Congress and president must be in place by January. Next question. What happens with the election if a candidate drops out of the race this late? Well, according to the bylaws of both the Democratic National Committee and Republican National Committee, the leadership of both parties would decide who replaces the candidates. That's only happened once in 1972 when VP candidate Thomas Eagleton resigned from the Democratic ticket after the DNC. Party leaders replaced him with another candidate. The big difference, though, that all happened in August. So what about the debates? The next presidential debate is scheduled for the 15th, less than 2 weeks from now. CDC guidelines for COVID-19 patients include isolating for at least 10 days after symptoms first appear. So will the next debate be moved, canceled, or done virtually? Well, right now, we don't know. The Commission on Presidential Debates hasn't said what they're doing in response to this news. As of now, the debates are still scheduled. The last question has to do with Senator Mike Lee's announcement that he tested positive for COVID-19 and is isolating right now. Senator Lee sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is scheduled to start nomination hearings for Judge Amy Coney Barrett to serve as a Supreme Court justice starting October 12th. Main question, can Senator Lee vote remotely if he's still isolated? We checked with the rules of the Senate Judiciary Committee and found the answer is yes. In the committee, a senator can vote, quote, by writing or by telephone or through personal instructions. However, if the vote moved past the committee while Lee was still isolating, he would have to return in person to vote on a Senate floor vote because voting by proxy is not allowed outside committees. Now, so far, both Mike Lee and Judiciary Committee Chair Senator Lindsey Graham Both say Lee is planning to isolate now, but will return in person to vote on the nomination process. Folks, if you have other claims or questions for us to look into, send us an email. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
The list of those in the president's circle who've tested positive is growing tonight. Senator Thom Tillis, who's also a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, has tested positive. So have Kellyanne Conway and President Trump's campaign manager, Bill Stepien, among others. As for the coronavirus situation here locally, Oregon added another 314 new cases today, and that pushes the statewide total past 34,000 and continues the recent upward trend. Washington County saw the most new cases today at 66. 3 more deaths were also announced. You can find COVID updates for your county and even your zip code on the KGW app or kgw.com. 2 more counties are also now on Governor Brown's watch list, and they are Benton and Clatsop counties, where cases have been rising recently. That gives them more state resources, but it also means they have to pause reopening plans for at least 3 weeks until their case rates drop below certain thresholds. Malheur is the only other county on the watch list right now. An outbreak at Pacific Seafood in Warrenton is part of the reason for the recent rise in Clatsop County. Health officials say they've traced the initial cases to a Labor Day community barbecue that was not associated with the company. 87 staff members have tested positive so far, but the company says no one has been hospitalized and most are not showing any symptoms. The seafood plant shut down last week, but now they're reopening gradually. The workers who tested positive remain in quarantine. Cleanup from wildfire and wind damage is set to begin in 8 Oregon counties. Both state and federal crews will help dispose of hazardous materials free of charge to property owners. This is required before homeowners can even start to rebuild. For more details on that process, here's a website to visit. It's wildfire.oregon.gov/cleanup. Meantime, firefighters continue to make progress on 3 major wildfires. They're still smoldering in our area. The Riverside fire in Clackamas County is now 45% contained. The Beachy Creek fire in Marion County is 59% contained. And the Lions Head fire in Marion and Lynn counties is 35% contained. A Lynn County couple that lost everything in the Beachy Creek fire is now suing Pacific Power. The class action lawsuit claims much of what was lost could have been saved had the company de-energized power lines. Catherine Cook has the story.
192,000 acres burned, 1,300 structures destroyed, and 5 deaths. The Beachy Creek fire, which began August 21st, has burned parts of Clackamas, Lynn, and Marion counties. Now a lawsuit claims mismanaged power lines are to blame for why the fire got so bad. A class action lawsuit filed in Multnomah County suggests Pacific Power and its parent company, PacifiCorp, failed to properly maintain and de-energize power lines during a windstorm in hot, dry conditions so they wouldn't be a source of fires. The lawsuit states, despite being warned of extremely critical fire conditions, defendants left their power lines energized. Defendants' energized power lines ignited massive, deadly, and destructive fires that raced down the canyons, igniting and destroying homes, businesses, and schools. The lawsuit names 2 plaintiffs, Janine James and Robin Colbert, on behalf of others impacted by the fires. The lawsuit says the couple lost their home, 4 cars, and everything else on their Lions property in Lynn County. Their attorney, Dan Mencher, spoke with us by phone.
Some of these were not inevitable fires, right? They weren't just sort of accidents. They were the result of a company not doing the proper things, right? And not doing the proper things in the moment, but probably also not doing the proper things leading up to fires.
Mencher cited findings from the Northwest Incident Management Team. He says the team concluded the fires that destroyed the plaintiff's home weren't caused by a wildland forest fire, but rather fires caused by a series of downed power lines. The lawsuit cites a key part of the Incident Management Team's report, which says, originally named the Beachy Creek Fire, it has been renamed the Santiam Fire, acknowledging that the Beachy Creek Fire no longer was the main cause of rapid fire growth and was instead fed by a series of small fires largely caused by downed power lines and other ignition sources throughout the area. KGW reached out to PacifiCorp for a response. A spokesperson told us the company does not comment on pending litigation. On Friday, Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley sent a letter to the U.S. Forest Service and Oregon Department of Forestry. They asked for an analysis of the role power lines played in the cause and/or spread of the Beachy Creek fire. The governor's office is also inquiring. A spokesperson says there will be a thorough investigation to determine the exact cause of these fires, including any role that downed power lines may have played, as well as any responsibility utilities may bear.
Attorneys have not yet specified the amount of damages they're seeking. They're still working on a number. And at this time, investigators haven't named an official cause of the fires. Catherine Cook, KGW News.
A developing story out of Longview tonight. A man has died after being shot by police. It happened at Cypress Street and 14th Avenue this afternoon. The Cowlitz County Sheriff's Office says Longview detectives were trying to arrest a man on a warrant. They say he ran off. Officers used less lethal force, but that didn't stop him. At least one officer shot the suspect. He died in the hospital. Detectives say he was armed and a gun was recovered at the scene. Protests against police brutality and in support of Black Lives Matter continue in Portland tonight. This group marched from Laurelhurst Park to sheriff's offices in southeast Portland. Much of the group is still in front of the offices right now. Police are warning them to stick to the sidewalks and stay off police property. They've been blocking the street, but otherwise, we haven't seen any issues.